Hello and welcome to Shade of Grey episode 2. Although I say Shade of Grey, we did have a suggestion from one of Nathan's friends, Hayden, that we should call it a shade of colour because it's colourful. I don't know why I did the accent, but it's fine.
I thought it was a pretty good suggestion, but it's too late. Your input is it's too late for that. So.
I mean, if we were ever going to change it, it would be now that we need to do it. We could just quickly change the logo from grey, make it more colourful, and change the word grey to colour.
We'll just do a new project with that same name. We get it trademarked.
Okay, we'll get a trademark right now, a shade of colour. So let's just talk a little bit about, I think the first podcast went out last week. It's been received quite well, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Some nice comments. We've had some good feedback from our friends and people that have listened. So that's good.
It is good. It is good. I'm glad to be back.
Glad to be back for another episode. Sorry, I don't know why I did that. I was just going to say short and then it came out long. I have a unicorn pen. A pen shaped as a unicorn. So that's always nice. So, what should we start today talking about? Do you want to talk about, maybe there was a couple of things that came up in the comments section on the last podcast that we could perhaps talk about.
What do you want to talk about?
So there was one that said, so black people can't be racist. And subsequently someone did comment straight on that and say that racism is I'll find out. Hold on. You can sing or something in the meantime if you want.
Okay,
keep things moving. If I click on this, is it just going to play noise? And then
it's not very professional.
Not very professional at all.
You should have got this prepped beforehand.
Yeah.
So it's a superiority complex.
That's what someone said. Why didn't, if you just knew the answer, why don't you just say it?
Well, I did say that, and you went on to find a video anyway, to find a comment.
So black people can't be racist, yep. And then someone said, as a response, racism is superiority complex, which is kind of what you said last week, right?
Sort of, yeah. In a way, yes. It's Well, what I said last week was about Europeans. They went around the place and they went around and they saw that everybody else is of color, and they once they had children with them, they saw that the offspring would be of color as well. So because of that, they felt inferior. So it's a mixture of both. And well, what we have today is that because white people have the power and like the economic dominance that we're seeing, they have the superiority complex now. So it's a mixture of both. That's why it's a very confused pool of mindsets.
But I think it's also worth mentioning as well that racism is we live in a society where we have systematic racism, so it's built into the systems and it's built into the fabric of society, so that people of race are at a disadvantage. So that's kind of there as well. So even if someone like a white person isn't necessarily racist or a racist, for example, they're still partaking in a system that overall is racist.
Yeah, they are. But it's interesting that you say it's a system, because we don't really see it. Well, it's not really seen as a system per se at the moment. It's like it's more of like a noun, like sort of like name calling.
So are you talking about the definition of the word racism? Because we actually spoke about this, didn't we, during the week?
We did speak about this, yeah.
And
but it's as I was saying, it's like name calling, as in if you went up to somebody and you said they're a black so and so or a white so and so, you're a Paki or whatever, it's like they've called me this, so I called them a white so and so. They called me this, so I called them a black. So that's what I mean. It's like name calling, So sorry, if someone says you're a black so and so, and you would call them a racist. Like that would be the response, because like in retaliation. But that's not really what racism is. If you are saying things like that, it's more that you're being derogatory and
Prejudice.
You're being prejudiced, but you're being like a student of the system. Like you are a result of the system, and we don't really see it like that. Like I was reading an article online. Oh, sorry. I was reading
there. Your voice went up a few octanes there. Squeaky.
I was reading an article online, and it was interesting. It was from an Indian woman. She lives in America. She was talking about the similarities between racism and the caste system. Obviously, the caste system has been going on for thousands of years over in India and maybe like surrounding countries. And there is well established, it's well known that is a system. In the Western world, we don't see racism as a system. Like big, as I was saying, it's more like name calling. It's more like it gets thrown around very easily, just to keep the blame away from the powers that be. To say that they've actually created a system where hate and prejudice and segregation and separation, divisions are a result of what they have created, and this is what they wanted to happen in the first place. You know, if you're a Christian and say, oh, Muslims do this, if you're a Jewish person and say Christians do this or whatever, you know, you're not coming together collectively and fighting for
the greater good.
The greater good, like, you know, and it's hard to pinpoint when it started or who created the system. So that's why we've decided to just come away from that word and just as I said, do more name calling and retaliation and things like that.
So it's kind of like the word has been trivialized, really. It's trivialized,
yeah.
And so that people aren't really realizing the problem. There was another comment on, I just chucked my phone on the floor on my YouTube channel, because obviously I put a clip of the podcast on my YouTube channel. Yes. And somebody said to me, and I quote, I should have lined this up, but I was too busy listening to you. What you're saying was very interesting, sir. Thank you for that. Sorry, I'm just hearing myself talking. Someone said, you two are cute, which is nice. Someone also said they thought they went to primary school with you. Someone else asked if you're Jamaican.
Primary school?
Someone, said they thought they went to primary school with you. What does being a white woman have anything to do with knowing about racism? I'm not entirely sure how that question came about. I think it was because I was talking about white ignorance and being ignorant to what you experience in your day-to-day life. And I think that as a white person, you might consider yourself, you know, the people who are like, my boyfriend's black or my friends are black, so I'm not a racist. Like, you might consider yourself completely away from that. But if we look at racism in the terms and the way that Nathan's talking about it, like it is this system, and by not being aware of it at all, as a white person, I am playing into that system and I am part of that system by not being aware of it. As soon as I become aware of it, then the game changes, because then I can see it and then I can say, right, okay, like, how can I help? What can I do? But as a white person who doesn't have to experience any of those prejudices against them or those systematic things that are built against them, then until you become aware of it and you choose to become aware of it, you could live your life in complete ignorance, you know, never opening your eyes to it. It's a choice. I think it's a choice of whether you're going to say, right, hold on a second, whether I like it or not, this is happening and this is real. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, as I said, as I said last week, it's hard for an individual to know what they can do, or like what can be
Done.
expected of them to help the situation, for a person of any color or creed or religion or whatever the case may be.
Can I ask you a question? Because in America there's like actual where you can go to classes. Like you can, as a white person, you can go to have a class.
As in what, to learn about races and religions?
And no, not racism, but say like you're someone who kind of like stereotypes people, who knows that they're prejudiced or has been completely unaware, but suddenly wakes up to the fact that the world is very imbalanced. You can go to classes to help you, I guess, become more aware of it and to see things differently and to actually understand what's going on, rather than just, you know, read what is in the papers and lay blame on, you know, a group of people. You actually open your eyes to these things. And do you think that's a good idea?
I think perhaps it could be a good idea, yes. But then it would depend on a few things, like who are actually teaching the class.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of person's teaching the class. Not that they have to be from a black or colored or anything to help to understand the situation and educate other people, but to have a good understanding themselves of the situation. That is a factor. But all in all, like if we had something like that over here, I think it could help. Because there was I remember I saw on your Twitter, actually, you retweeted something about Professor Green's
documentary.
Like the people that do like British, I don't know what the group's called, but like people like National Front.
Britain's First.
Britain First and stuff like that.
English Defence League.
Yeah, like what he was saying towards the end of the interview that he did on Channel 4 News.
Yeah.
He said like they have their British flags up and they're waving them around. Like little do they know that Britain itself has not done very much for them at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the British people are very proud of their heritage or, you know, their history and whatever. There's not really much to be proud of. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, it's not really a glittering history that they have where, you know, I think that's one thing about Western society. Yeah. Respect and power, yeah, is sorry, your power is respected if you've taken it by force. Mm-hmm. Like if you've won land by war, or you know, or like perjury, like rape or something like that, pillaging, you know, is seen as, oh, you've done good there, this is your land and you deserve it. And it's like, it's strange. It's a very strange concept.
I don't think these people even think like that. I don't think they even think like that. I think that they are people who are lost because you know, these are like his documentary is about white working class men, right? So yeah. That's kind of like the title that you're going with. So there's these people who are, I guess, who feel let down, who feel hurt. They probably come from places where there used to be industry, there used to be money, there used to be jobs, etc. And we've got a massive force behind the media that are there quickly to say, these are the culprits. This is the reason that all of this has stopped.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do a little bit of research, it's not hard to find that actually, no, that's complete bullshit. The reason that it's all stopped is to do with our government. It's to do with the British people that are in charge and running the country, who are concerned with money more so than the people of the citizens of their country. So I think these people are really lost, and I think that they feel so much anger that they're just trying to find an outlet for that anger. And then it's like when they're in that position, when you're so angry like that, you actually become quite vulnerable. Yeah. And then there's someone there to scoop you up and say, well, actually, look, we've got an answer for you. This is the answer. This is the solution. And this is why it's happened. And then, you know, and then they're part of a club. They're part, and they, it's a community. And that's the other thing. Like, we don't have community in this country. We don't have community at all. Like, we live in a block of flats. We might say hi to our neighbours or whatever. We don't really know them. Like, we don't, it's just all disappeared. So it's not like people have missed that as well. We're humans. Like, we are supposed to be like in a pack, in a group. And when you go somewhere and people make you feel wanted and cared about and you're heard and you're listened to, all of a sudden you're just like, yes. And it gives you a sense of power, even in that small world. And that's why I think people get so into it. It's more about their individual experience than anything else. And they don't think outside of it. And so it becomes like this, this obsession.
Well, I think it's fascinating that a lot of people talk about, there's like immigrants and people coming over and taking the jobs, and this is why there's no money in the system or things like that. I had a quite heated argument with my auntie about this, like, because when after the Brexit vote, I voted Remain, she voted for Brexit. She was talking about about the immigrants and there's no money in the pot for British people because the immigrants have taken the money. And the more you look into this concept that all the foreigners, all the Europeans are coming to taking the job, it's just there's less and less evidence and facts behind it. There's things like the fact that most of I think the most common name for a doctor in this country is Khan, which is obviously an Asian name. So that they're not Europeans. They're not taking those jobs. The Europeans that do come in, they say that they're all 16 people to a house. They're all on benefits. They're all, they just come in for the benefits and then send all the money home. I'm sure there is evidence of that, and there are many people that do that, but it's not the majority of them.
No, it's not.
In the media, and it's portrayed as those that there are thousands of these people, and they all just take the money and send it back. They don't pay any taxes or anything like that. But most, working class Europeans, they're here because they want the work, they want the money, they want to be British. You know what I mean?
But not only that, like they want a better life. And if the problem is as well, like even within Europe, within Africa, within Asia, the reason that people are coming here, the money is here because Great Britain has fucked up everywhere else over the years, and so this is where the money is. So what? Because we've done that. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't come to a place where there's money now. Ha ha, because you're over there. Even though we might have done this to your country, set it up so you're a disadvantage, taken away these trade deals. Like, there's no sense of, and again, like you touched on this last week, capitalism. There's no sense of looking after each other. There's no sense of, like, okay, let's do this or do that. There's none of that. It's just me. And then when other people are doing the same thing, are saying, well, what about me? I want a piece of that. I want better for my family, which we all, everyone aspires to that, right?
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden they're like, the devils. But I've known loads of Eastern European people over the years from different places. I've lived in London, from Essex. And the people that I know go to work, they pay tax, they pay into the system, or some of them even work within and as part of the system. So I don't think that it has any grounding, but it's a scapegoat. And the problem is that all the time when we're looking at all of these other things, we're not looking to where the real problems lie.
I think also a misconception is that a lot of people, obviously a lot of people that voted Brexit are from the slightly older generation. Yeah, they've seen, as you said, like the industry, factory workers, like miners, builders that like my dad, he was a builder. Like, he went over to Germany to work. Like, they forget about that. But he went over to Germany to work because there was no work here. But people that have really done some hard work, like slogged it out, and they've got their money, and they've seen some real hard workers come and go through the years. I think this generation, the millennial generation, as they call it, they're not prepared to do certain jobs like that. You know what I mean? These certain trades aren't passed down, and the hard work ethic has not been passed down so much. Everybody's, on the internet, on their phones, and they want everything the next day. They want technology and stuff like that. So things like miners and mass production in factories and stuff like that doesn't really get done to the level that they've seen it. So
especially not for the cost that it can be done in other places, because no one here would work for that anyway.
No one will work for that amount of money. So because they've lived here, the younger generation, they've lived here, they know what the money's worth and how much you can get for your pound, and they don't want to do like sort of menial tasks for a little amount of money. So then when someone else comes over and does it, the older generation will say, no, we don't want these people. We want our young British people doing these jobs. They're not jumping out of bed to go and do them. So it's a bit of confusion there.
I think it's because you're mentioning that, like, my granddad's 91, isn't he? And he's German.
Yeah.
And he's from the part of Germany that is now Poland that changed during the Second World War. And he was like a prisoner of war in the Second World War, and then he ended up in England, and he was just a farm worker. I think, at the peak he earned £3.50 a week.
Yeah.
And he kind of had this dream that one day he was going to own his own farm, and he would do it by the time he was 30. And he did it, but he didn't actually do it until he was in his 50s. But when he got the farm that eventually ended up being his, he rented it.
Yeah.
But to pay the rent, he did a factory job in the day. So he'd get up at 4 a.m, do all the farm work, be at work for 9, work till 5, come home, do some more farm work, and go to bed. And he's like, when he talks about it, he's just like, it was easy. And bearing in mind, at this time, he's in his 50s. Like, it's not like he was 20 or 30. To him, this was like, and he said going to the factory job was like a rest, because they had, he said it's when all the unions had come in and stuff. So they had all of these, you could only work as fast as the slowest man. And then you had to like take breaks all the time. And he was like, no, I just want to get the job done. But you couldn't do it that way. So, then it becomes unproductive, doesn't it? Because then, everywhere else is going to be able to do it faster and cheaper. So all of that's changed. But he even him, just being a farm worker, he loved that job. Like he had so much passion and like enjoyment. And I do think, like that some people pin too much on, it's kind of like this pride thing and this ego thing and this image thing, when actually there's a lot of stuff that you can do that people might turn their nose up at that's actually really enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, that has made me think about the Dave Chappelle specials came on Netflix the other day.
Yeah, we were watching them.
In one part of it, he was talking about Donald Trump. He wants to bring the jobs. He wants to bring jobs over that they've given to countries abroad. He wants to bring them jobs back into America, so to get his employment rate up and whatever. Dave Chappelle made a joke about Nikes. Yeah, he said, "I want to wear Nikes. I don't want to make them." How many people in this country or in America or whatever are prepared to go in a factory and make thousands of Nike shoes every day? You know what I mean? It's just not. You can't really see that happening. So that's why they outsource these jobs in the first place, because they're low paying. Yeah,
but also in the countries where they're being made, there isn't, or I don't know for sure, but there's not minimum wage. You get child labour. It's all, there's no regulation. It's not, even if there is regulation, it's not enforced.
Yeah.
So, there's all of that. But if we want to live in a world that is, isn't so corrupt and that is fairer, we should be going there and saying, hold on a second, no, we're not going to buy anything from you until you sort this out and you do this properly. But no one wants to do that because it's going to cost them more money and it's going to eat into their profits because everyone is so profit oriented.
And that's we circled straight back. Everything's so profit orientated. They outsource these jobs and stuff like that. And then working class people wonder, oh, why is there no money for increased wages and stuff like that? Because they spend the money on other things. Like they spend the money on thousands of MPs or um,
Bankers,
bank
it's
bonuses
insane.
and bankers bonuses and
Insane.
all these things. Like you think about, oh, certain bankers got £1 million bonus. They've outsourced these jobs. They sent 100 million to China to make these jobs, to do these jobs or whatever. And then the person at home, the working class person's wondering why I've only got a 1%, 2% pay increase this year. Because, there's the money's been taken out of the pot. The money's literally been taken out of your hands to give to other people.
But our government's in the pocket of corporations. So
Well, yeah, there is that.
all the government cares about is it's got to do what it takes to make them the most profit, not do what's best for the people of this country. That's their interests are not with us. It doesn't work like that. Their interests of where money is and where power is.
That's it.
And that's why the country gets like it gets. It's not because there's immigrants or because we're part of the EU or any of the stuff that the papers would lead us to believe. It's down to our government. It's their job. And when you start to look into some of the stuff that they've done, like with the NHS and stuff, you're just like, why? It's like, what I found is I avoided politics for years and years and years and years. I avoided politics. I grew up in a family where my dad said, all politicians are the same, all political parties are the same, doesn't matter who you vote for, not going to affect your life, right? And it wasn't until not the last election, but the one before that, where I actually voted, because then I was like, hold on a second, I can't keep saying that. Like, and I think there's a lot of people that have probably said that, who feel like politics, isn't for us. Leave that to the politicians. That's what they're there to do. You know, there was this kind of thing in the past where politicians are way up there and then the lowly man is all the way down here. But hold on a second, these are the people that make the decisions that affect your life.
That's right.
So are you just going to let them go rogue and do whatever they want, which is what's been happening for years? Or are we at some point, when is enough going to be enough? Like, when is that enough going to be enough? Like, we're talking this week, train fares went up again. It's crazy. And the service is terrible. I got a train today, and even though it was off peak and everything else, it was still delayed.
Yeah. Well,
angry, Clara. Terribly angry.
That's why when
Passionate.
train drivers or whatever, they go on strike, they have their points. Like, MPs, they don't set their own salaries. That comes from an external company.
They get 74,000 a year.
Yeah, but they don't set their own salaries. Yeah. People that make the country run, they have to go on strike for their money, even though they're the ones that are really actually necessary. As I said, there's thousands of MPs and politicians and whatever. The train drivers, underground drivers,
nurses,
these people, like, well,
doctors.
I'm saying as a train driver, you have everybody in the city. The city makes the money. The city of London makes the money for Great Britain. Yeah, none of them people aren't getting to work without a train driver. Yeah, but they're the ones that need to go on strike for their pay. Your house burns down. Yeah, you need a fireman. They have to go on strike for their pay.
Yeah.
Nurses,
and their services have been massively cut.
Nurses and junior doctors, you get hurt, your mum gets hurt, you have to go to hospital. They have to go on strike for their pay, and yet as an MP getting £70,000 a year, when a fireman gets 40k or whatever, a nurse gets considerably less than that. Train drivers are I think they're about 35, 40k.
Depends where they are. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Location.
I know. But these people that are actually necessary, not the. If you ever take 5-10 minutes out of your day to sit down and watch BBC Parliament, and you see what happens in the House of Commons,
they're mostly asleep.
It's just ridiculous. People just in suits shouting at each other. Yeah. It's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. There's no politics is literally like they call it, what's that saying? Playground politics.
It is like that.
They're literally just children whoever can shout the loudest and the longest wins the argument. I hate when people do that.
Also, about those politicians and their playground antics, I didn't know, but I do now, that within the Houses of Parliament, there's like restaurants and bars and stuff, and they're so much cheaper proportionately to anywhere else in the area. It's like a pint of beer was under £4. I mean, that doesn't happen, especially not in London. And like their food subsidised, and they were complaining about their food because it wasn't of high enough standard. It was like that of ASOG.
Oh, these oysters haven't got saffron in there. They're not, listen, I heard stories about the food that they have in the Houses of Parliament. It's like they're like 5-star like catered restaurants. Like it's ridiculous. And then it's, as you said, they don't pay a lot for it.
But no one else. Train drivers don't get that.
That's probably why they're all there. That's probably why they're all there.
Free
just
food or
falling
cheap
asleep
food.
there. They just probably had the biggest plate of food for like £5. Fell asleep out in the middle of the what's that room called? I don't know.
Yeah,
the House of Parliament. Yeah,
you know, where they discuss things and go, here.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I've got something to say.
And also,
Mr. Speaker,
what do they actually sort out in there? You know, what actually, I know that they do, you know, occasionally set laws and they do, you know, they do debate things. But for the rest of the time, you know, it just seems like.
No, it's stupid. I've seen.
It's too many people.
I do listen to Prime Minister's questions sometimes. That comes on every Wednesday at lunchtime or whatever, whenever it comes on. It's not. I was about to say it's interesting. It's interesting in the fact that, you know, you get to see like all the big wigs are there. That's when I think everybody gets like 4 questions or something like that to ask the Prime Minister. Yeah. And then it's just literally like Jeremy Corbyn would be every like 5 words, you know, somebody's behind him shouting, "Yeah, go on, Jeremy. Yeah, right. Yeah, what about that, Theresa? Right." And it's just like, just shut the fuck up. Like, you know, you're not actually doing anything. It's a very strange. It's a very strange game that we have here called politics. And
don't you think it's very outdated? Like, it feels almost antiquated.
Yeah, of course it is. It's
fossiled and old.
It's strange. You know what? Can't wait to November. Like, just, you know, it's the anniversary of Guy Fawkes. I'm sure he should have blown that motherfucker, because these like don't know what they're doing.
They don't. I think they very well do know what they're doing, but it's not in the interest of people, and people might like to think it is, but it's not. Or if it is, it's in the interest of a few people and not the majority. No one can ever do something that's in the best interest for everybody. But I think
that's what Jeremy Corbyn said. He's that the Labour's new slogan: for the many, not the few. Like, you can please all of the people some of the time. You can please some of the people all the time. But, you know, as long as you're trying,
can't please all the people all the time.
Yeah, but as long as you're trying, you know, to bring some sort of equality, to take more from the rich and give to the poor. Obviously, he's not Robin Hood, but he wants to. There always has to be some sort of hierarchical structure. You know, the people at the bottom, a lot of the working class, not all of them, but a lot of the working class, they won't know what to do with money. We were speaking about this the other day. If all the money was put into a pot and everybody got their fair share, yeah, a lot of the people that were at the bottom, they don't know what to do with it. So they'll go out, buy their Ferrari, buy their whatever, and, you know, the people that were smart with their money, they will know to invest, and they'll have their shares in their company. All the people that didn't have any money before, they'll buy whatever product the company is selling. It will end up going straight back into that structure over time. Yeah.
But even you saying that now, that shows us that this system is, in a way, like completely corrupt. Like, it's completely wrong. It's based on basically, I'm going to trick you into thinking that you need this, and this, and you're going to work for the same team. You're going to work for that team really hard, make them even more money, and then they're going to take back some of that money as tax, and then you're going to take the money that you've earned, and then you're going to put it right back into their pockets by buying something that basically you made and you know costs way less than you're paying for it. And it's this cycle of, you know, you've got to keep up with the Joneses. You need a good car, you need a house, but you can't really afford it, so you've got to take out massive debt. So then you don't have the freedom of choice anymore, because all of a sudden you've got all of this debt that you owe. So now you're a controlled person. So you can't consider, for instance, for example, a strike, or you couldn't consider, anything that goes against that, basically the hand that feeds you, that you've blinded by the fact that the hand that feeds you is punching you in the back of the head the whole time you're eating, because you can't see that anymore. But that's basically what it is. It's the whole thing is corrupt, and people will go, communism doesn't work, and this doesn't work, and that doesn't work. But capitalism doesn't work either, and we haven't tried everything. We haven't tried everything. And, we have moved forward. We have all of this technology, and yet we use it to destroy ourselves and the planet on a daily basis, which seems bizarre to me.
There has to be, as you said, there's all this technology. There must be some sort of supercomputer.
Sorry.
There must be some sort of supercomputer that has done the calculations and come up with a better system than this. But, they're not prepared to use that because the powers that be won't let them. And when I say the powers that be, I don't mean Theresa May or any nonsense like that. I mean the people who have money that can influence
those
Theresa
people.
May and people like that. But I was gonna say on what you said before about it being corrupt. Income tax is the biggest scam there has ever been, ever. Like literally, you can pay tax on, if you bought an Apple or whatever, you pay your 20% tax or whatever. But to get taxed for earning money, that is a scam. That even when they brought that system in place, the people that made it, like the advisors, they said, no, this is never going to work. People will clock on. But we have allowed, this is the problem. We allow these things to go on. And this is
the result. And where does all the money go? We're like, if we're the ones putting the money into that pot, shouldn't we have a choice on what it's spent on? But we don't, because Tweedledee and Tweedledum and Tweedledickheads ruling the country. So we've got
don't use my sayings.
So we've got no, like, really no hope that they're just getting this money. And it's not just that. We pay tax on everything we buy. We pay tax on the money we earn. We pay council tax for our house. We pay road fund tax for our car. Like, when you add it up, it's crazy. And it's like, when they tell you the services or what this money goes towards, I mean, it gets pretty sketchy, because I don't believe it. X amount goes to the police. Well, how come the police force is getting smaller? X amount goes to the fire brigade. How come that's getting smaller? X amount goes to the, rubbish collection. But that all gets outsourced and made cheaper. Like, where is the money going? How many potholes are everywhere?
Yeah. If you think about it, when you take the time to do the calculations, 60 million people in this country, you have to think about
unemployment, children.
Well, yeah, there is all that.
Old people.
But we're not a big country, but we do have a lot of money in the country. Yeah. We're one of the...
Unless you're a politician, and then you keep it in an offshore account.
Well, there is
so
that.
You don't have to pay tax.
But there is a lot of money in the country, yeah? So, but you have to think about, there is 60 million people, yeah? Take away, I don't know, 15, 20 million of that, because they're not paying tax, yeah? Because they're kids and whatever. Say 40 million people paying 20% tax on every single thing that you do. Yeah,
VAT.
That is a lot. That is a lot of money. Yeah. But the problem that we have is then we have, as you said, offshore accounts in lots of different businesses and people, individual people. And then the corporation tax, the corporation tax has been lower than it has been in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
How can, when more money is being made and pumped into the country, and more money it takes to run things, even though where there's more technology than ever and things should be cheaper, it's actually costing more to do everything. You have companies that are taking money out, and then you've allowed that, and there's corporation, even though they're taking money out already, you said, all right, we'll charge you less as it goes anyway. we're in a strange time. We're in a strange
We are
time.
in a very strange time. We're in a strange time. We could have spoken about this at the start because it was kind of on topic, but we were just going to touch on the H&M advertising campaign that launched this
Yes,
week.
I think I was going to segue into that, but then you started talking about some other stuff.
Sorry about that.
But yeah, explain it because I didn't really hear about this story.
So H&M did their latest campaign, and as part of the campaign, they had a little black boy, and he was wearing a hoodie, and the hoodie said "the coolest monkey in the jungle," and it has kind of kicked off, and people are being asked to boycott H&M for a campaign that is being considered as racist, offensive, prejudiced, etc. I've seen, some people say, well, if it was a white child in the hoodie, would people be making these kind of assumptions? And who at H&M thought that would ever be a good idea, though? I mean, was it like, what kind of conversation happened where they thought that might be a good idea?
Well, there's two things really.
Can I just say, they can't claim, surely they can't claim that they just didn't think about it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. There's two things. Either it was an accident, where if it was an accident, that's probably even worse, that they don't understand the implications of what they done, the ramifications. Or they've deliberately done it, and then you would have to ask why they would put a black boy in the monkey jumper instead of the white child.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sure they've got plenty of child models of all sorts of colors and creeds. Yeah, and then you have to ask why they would put the black child in it.
They did issue an apology.
Yeah, fuck the apology. That's
No, but I just wanted to see what they said. I just wanted to see what what they were trying to say is the reason. So they said H&M is committed to playing its part in addressing society's issues and problems, whether it's diversity, working conditions, or environmental protection, and many others. Our standards are high, and we feel that we've made real progress over the years in playing a part in promoting diversity and inclusion, but we clearly haven't come far enough. We agree with all the criticism that has been generated. We have got this wrong, and we agree that even if unintentional, passive, or casual racism needs to be eradicated wherever it exists, we appreciate the support of those who have seen that our product and promotion were not intended to cause offence. But as a global brand, we have responsibility to be aware of and attuned to all racial and cultural sensitivities, and we have not lived up to this responsibility at this time. The incident is accidental in nature, but this doesn't mean we don't take it extremely seriously or understand the upset and discomfort it's caused. And then they go on to say they've taken it down and blah blah blah, and that racism and bias in any form, conscious or unconscious, deliberate or accidental, are simply unacceptable and need to be eradicated from society. In the instance, we have not been sensitive enough with this on our agenda. And then their humblest apologies.
Yeah, well, as I said a moment ago, fuck the apology, but the point is, it's this isn't the first time it's happened. I remember a few months ago, or maybe a year ago or so, whatever, Gap had an advert where there was I think it was three or four, I think it was 3 white children and a little Asian girl and a black girl. And then there was the taller, one of the taller white children was leaning and put her arm down and her elbow down on top of the black girl's head and was leaning on her. And that was seen as racist as well. I think these companies,
they do it on purpose.
Yeah, you can't do this. You can argue that the Gap one was an accident, but they have to do this on purpose. They can't be so incompetent that they can see, they can feel this is a good idea.
So many people. It will go through so many people would have to sign it off. So many people. Surely someone looked at it and went, that is going to cause.
Well, there's a photographer. There's you know,
Yeah, but it's not
there's
even that.
advisors, there's people watching the
There's
photographer,
at
then
that
it goes
level,
to the editor,
and then the next, and then the next. It
Yeah.
has to be signed off by all,
If you
especially
like-
if it's global. Oh my God, yeah. It's not just going to be like, oh, this is a nice picture, I'll upload
Yeah.
it to Instagram.
and it is global because there's people talking about it over here, like LeBron and P Diddy.
Yeah,
We're
P
talking
Diddy
about
signed. I think he signed the model for $1 million or something.
the Weekend. He has a clothing line with them, and he said he would pull it, but because it is embarrassing. It's embarrassing for H&M as well. But they must have known what would happen. At this level of incompetence, you know, they must have seen the offence that it
And
will
also,
cause.
who works in their office? Like, is there no like black people that work in their office that might have gone, excuse me, guys, I see that this could be a bit of a problem? Because white people should see it straight away, but you know, it might be that they're just too ignorant to even, you know, see how this could possibly cause offence. It's just cute. But surely there must be, I mean, but this is people who deal with campaigns that are supposed to access and influence billions or millions of people, and they allow this to happen. It just seems crazy, and it is racist. People can be like, well, you know, it's not, it's just a cute boy in a cute little jumper.
Well, I think it's interesting that in this time of you know, people are quite soft, and people get offended by a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you said anything like that might be deemed like homosexual or homophobic
Mm-hmm.
or anything like that, people will pick up on it
Straight
straight away.
Or
But
sexist.
if you start calling people a monkey, it's like, oh well, that's a grey area, and you know, people might not, you know, it's a bit
Depends
hard
on what
to comprehend.
context it's said.
Yeah. Maybe if it's a white person wearing it, maybe it's not the same thing. Like, you know, it's a bit strange. You have to think about these things where a black, something that can be seen as questionable for if a black person was wearing it or not, but to say anything homophobic, that is strictly out of the question. Why is it that what are black people like a lower class, they're seen as, you know, maybe a little bit of offense or a bit of a joke can be taken out of the black person.
Exactly. But of all the things that H&M have to sell as well, like if you had that if you went into H&M, yeah, and that jumper was hanging up on the shelf, and then it's up to me or you as a parent to interpret whether or not we want our child to wear that, because it's up to us to interpret that slogan as we will and say whether or not we deem it appropriate for our child. But to use that in your lead campaign, why? And to put it on a black child as well, knowing that historically that's something that has been said and used in a derogatory, negative way. Why would you do that? Why would you even do that?
No, there's no way it could be by accident. It must have been intentional. Like whether they meant to. No, there's no, you know, it must have been intentional.
No one, I don't see, like, if you say you took that picture, no one knew anything about it, and you took that picture of that little boy and you showed it to 100 people of different races from different places, and that rhymes, and you got them to say, how could this picture be deemed as, you know, as offensive, or how could it be? I bet they'd all give the same answer straight away.
Well, it depends who you ask. Because if you ask the people at the head office at H&M, no, that's fine, obviously.
It's absolutely fine. Nothing to worry about. So just to round up today's podcast, is there anything else that you want to touch on, talk about before we go? I've got something to...
You got something?
Oh, well, I want to dedicate today's podcast to my sister, because we're recording it on the day.
Yes, I was going to say something at the start. Sorry.
That's all right. That it's 6 years today since my sister died. And when I say it like that, I feel like 6 years, when you say 6 years doesn't seem like a long time, but it feels like such a long time, because a world of things have happened since that time. And I think that what I've learned from my experience of death so far in my life, and obviously it started when I was 9 when my mum died, and then Emily dying later on, is that in life, shit is going to happen to you. Like, bad stuff is going to happen to you. It just does. It's part of life. And maybe the fact that we label it so as bad and we label it as negative, instead of maybe labeling it as challenging and sad, but labeling it as bad and negative, I think isn't necessarily the right thing to do, because I can't change the fact that my mum and sister died, right? So I could spend the rest of my life wishing that I could change it and being like, right, well, I can't do anything, I can't succeed because my mum, and I did that for years. I was like, I can't, my mum died, I can't know, and that's because my mum died, and that's because my mum died, and I used it as like an excuse, and it held me back. Did it make me happy? Did it make me enjoy my life? No. When my sister died, that's when I decided, right, okay, I've got a choice now. I can try and be happy. I have to try and make this happy. And it's taken a long time. I'm not saying I'm happy all the time. I mean, you can testify to that. But I'm so much happier than I've ever been before. And all that's happened is the circumstances of my life haven't changed. My mum's still dead. My sister's still dead. Fair enough, it was longer ago, which, if anything, kind of makes it a bit worse because the memories kind of fade, and that's a bit more of a struggle. But I'm much happier because I've changed the way that I think and feel about things, and I've tried to use those experiences as something to grow from. And I think that that's something that everyone could remember, is like, in life, when something happens that normally makes you panic or stress or worry, see if there's a different way that you can look at it, because panic, stress, worry, upset doesn't make you happier, and it doesn't make your life any better.
No, it doesn't. And I think in this country we look at death in the wrong way. Obviously, your sister died way too early. However, we still should celebrate death and take the time to look back and see what she accomplished and how you yourself or anybody that knows somebody that has died can grow from that, learn and experience new things, maybe like things that your sister wanted to try or do or anything, and just use death as, I don't want to say not like a stepping stone, like you're stepping over, but
yeah,
just,
no, I don't think, I know what you're saying, because I always say that I used to say, like, my sister's death is the best thing that happened to me, and people would be like, how can you say that? And it's like, I'm not saying if I could change it, I would. Like, of course I would. In one sense, it's the worst thing that happened.
Yeah.
But to me, to my life, it's the best thing that happened, because it was a turning point for me. It was the point where I said, enough is enough, and now I'm going to change it.
Yeah.
And had that not have happened, I might have carried on how I was for however many years afterwards. And the fact of the matter is, wanting to change something, again, a complete waste of energy. If it's already happened, then it's too late to change. Like, you can't change. You can't, unless someone gives me a time machine and I can find a cure or a way to treat cancer, and I can go back to that time. Then I have to look at where I am now and decide how I want my life to be. And it's literally a decision.
Because a few years before your sister died, your mother died. And, even to this day, you still get very emotional about not having your mother, about not having someone there to talk to about things and things like that. So if you had carried on your life and your sister stayed alive, but you were still down from your mother's death, who knows where you could be now?
Exactly.
But as you said, when your sister died as well, it was a turning point, and you understood that you need to change something about yourself, so not just physically, but mentally, and you're where you were in your life.
But I think as humans, we like to think that we've got control over life. We can decide what happens, but ultimately we don't, because when it comes down to it, we're all going to die, and we can't decide when that time is going to be. So I don't go, oh, well, what if this had happened? My life would have been different. Because it's not. That's not how my life's meant to be. My life's meant to be the way that it is. And I think, like, I love and appreciate you a lot, because I can talk to you about death. Like, for a lot of people, like, as soon as you start talking about it, really creeps people out. Like, they literally they can't handle it. Like they literally don't know what to do or
Well,
feel so uncomfortable, and then they just walk away, and they're like, like when someone dies, well, people will avoid you, you know, like
Yeah.
people will, because they don't know what to say to you. Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know. I don't know what to say to anybody. Like my nan died when I was, I think it was around 12. I think me and my mother and my uncle and my sister were trying to work it out a few days ago when we was together. But it was around when I was about 12, and that, you know, because she's my nan, you know, like, not to be harsh, but you expect her to go at some point. So it didn't really have that big of an effect on me, but since then, like my neighbor to one side of me and one of my friends on the other, who is the neighbor on the other side of me, and also my best friend, they all lost one of their parents to cancer. And the two that were my close friends, they came and spoke to me about it. And obviously I hadn't had that experience, but, you know, so I didn't know what to say to them, but I still tried my best to console them and give them
just to be open to it.
some words. And yeah, I wanted to hear what they had to say.
Yeah.
I wanted them to speak to me. I didn't know why it was me that they spoke to. I didn't feel like I could offer any sort of advice or anything like that, and I was stuck for words a lot of the time while they were speaking to me. But at the same time, I was there as a listening ear.
Because sometimes I don't think people want advice. Like, they don't want advice. They just want to know that you're there. Like they just want to talk. They don't need you to. How can you possibly make it better? What advice are you going to give them? Well, if you just, you know, take these pills or you know, it doesn't work like that. It's something that takes time. But it's the fact that as humans, we are these like creatures of community. And it's about being able to share, and it's about being able to talk about it, and just someone listening to you and not being so like freaked out by something that is inevitably going to happen to all of us and is actually all around us. I know we like to keep it hidden. You know, other cultures do it very differently, but
well, that's what I was saying. Other cultures do it very differently. Other cultures do it, you know, more correctly.
Yeah, and as a child, like losing my mum, I think had death have been viewed in a different way within society, I probably wouldn't have had the huge emotional burdens that I carried and caused me a lot of problems like for a long time.
Yeah.
But because it was like this thing that we couldn't talk about, and you know, you don't talk about really, and blah blah, it became like such a big thing that then became buried, and it ends up causing, you know, like lots of
it's
problems.
like a vacuum,
so,
and it's
good to talk.
It is good to talk. And I was talking about something. Oh, sorry, I was listening to something today about it was about people in the military. Something about the emotions. People don't talk much. Like back in the day, like people like in the military and all sorts of services, like Marines, Army, or whatever it was, they were taught not to show any emotion, not to speak about it. That's a sign of weakness. And then more recently, in the last 10 years or so, in fact, they're actually bringing out an advert, and I heard part of the advert where you know, it starts by saying, "Oh, I thought the army was not to show any emotions because that is weakness," and it goes on to say, "But really, the army now is, you know, there's always someone to talk to. You always got friends there, or if you just need someone to make you laugh, or
that's because
something
so
like
many
that."
people have been committing suicide.
Yeah, well,
that's why
there's a lot of PTSD where people take that mentality of don't let your emotions
they
out,
have
take
been
that
offered
into
counselling
the real world.
for years, but they just don't take it
Well,
because there's a stigma attached to it as well.
They're
It's
taught
like this
not to
stigma of
talk
weakness.
about anything.
But if you're seeing things that I don't think the human is geared up to ever see, and not speaking about them and not processing them, then it can only end really one way. But I think that's maybe a topic for another podcast. Why, especially men, like women, we're brought up to believe it's okay to talk and to share things. It doesn't always work out like that, but especially men, it's like, no, you must not show emotion. You must be strong and tough, and don't you dare cry.
Well, that's what I'm on. You're always crying and shit, so fuck that. You know what I mean?
Woo! And smashing bins, but we'll keep that one under wrap show, babe. We've got to go. We've got to go now.
Yeah, we are going for a meal, even though Clara doesn't want to go. She wants to save money for a holiday. I'm going for a meal. If she's not coming, I'll go by myself.
He's taking me for a meal because it's 6 years since my sister died, so we just wanted to go and celebrate her life.
To toast, have a little toast.
I wasn't going to do anything, but then Nathan came home and said that he was taking me, which is very lovely. And one of the reasons...
Well, no, I said I'm going, innit, if you want to come.
That's not what he said. So we're going to go get dinner. We seem to end this podcast all the time about food because I think we do it at a time where by the end of it we're hungry.
Well, you weren't very professional last time talking about I'm going to start cooking and shit.
Sorry.
Anyway, yes, it was nice speaking to you once again.
Thanks. You can speak to me anytime you like.
I wasn't talking to you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment.
Where are we now?
We are Dep on YouTube, Castbox, iTunes. There was
Did
another
we do
one.
SoundCloud?
I believe we did SoundCloud.
Anyway, Shade of Grey on all of them.
Also on, we're on another one as well.
And if you're listening to this, if you find this and you just listen to the audio and you want to watch a video of our lovely faces, you can go to our YouTube channel, Shade of Grey.
And if you're on, if you're watching this on YouTube on video and you would like to listen to the audio, just click on one of the links below.
It's that easy. All of the links are in the description below. Thanks for listening. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
We out.
I know the logo.